Counting of votes is one of the most important stages of election process. The result of an entire election may be nullified by wrong, irregular, or careless counting. Hence, all returning officers shall exercise strict vigilance on actual counting of votes and shall also maintain discipline inside the counting hall. Now, I will highlight some legal provisions of Representation of People Act 1951 and Conduct of Election Rules 1961. Counting shall be done under the supervision and direction of returning officers and contesting candidate election agents. Counting agents have right to be present in the counting hall. This is stated in the section 64 of Representation of People Act. And if there is destruction and loss of ballot papers, returning officers shall report it to the Election Commission of India as mentioned in section 64A of Representation of People Act. If there is equality of votes at the result, the final result will be decided by the draw of lots by the returning officer, and this is mentioned in section 65 of Representation of People's Act. Again, the section 66 of Representation of People Act says that returning officer has to declare result on completion of counting in absence of any direction to the contrary, and the returning officer has to report the result to the Election Commission of India and to the appropriate authority, that is Secretary State Legislature, who shall publish in Gazette immediately. This is as per the section 67 of Representation of People Act. Maintenance of secrecy of voting is stated in section 128 of Representation of People Act. It is applicable to all the officers and staffs on election duty on the poll day and on the counting. District election officer, returning officer, assistant returning officer, and polling staffs shall not act for the candidates or to influence the voting in favor of a candidate. In section 136 of Representation of People Act, tampering with EVM machines, ballot paper may attract imprisonment from 6 months to 2 years or fine or sometimes both. For uniformity of the counting, date and time of counting is fixed by the Election Commission of India, and here the notice shall be given to all the contesting candidates and their election agents by the returning officers in writing at least 3 clear days before the poll. By the Rule 53 of the Conduct of Election Rules 1961, admission to the place of counting is restricted. Nobody is allowed except returning officer, assistant returning officer, counting staff, candidates, their election agents, and counting agents and public servants on duty, and persons authorized by the Election Commission of India. Rule 55C, Conduct of Election Rules 1961, is regarding the scrutiny and inspection of EVMs before counting. Counting staff and counting agents have to inspect and ensure that control unit is not tampered and all seals are intact. In case this happens, returning officer shall report the matter to the Election Commission of India. Rule 56C, Conduct of Election Rule 1961, relates to the actual counting. And Rule 57C, Conduct of Election Rule 1961, is about how to keep the EVMs after the counting. And Rule 56D, Conduct of Election Rule 1961, is about the scrutiny of paper trail, where printer for paper trail is used. And Rule 60, Conduct of Election Rule 1961, provides for the continuous counting. And Section 57 of Representation of People's Act 1951 says that in case of adjournment of poll at any or some of the polling stations, counting shall not commence till the adjourned poll is completed. Now, I will say something about the pre-counting arrangement. Counting halls shall be arranged as per the instructions. Each assembly constituency has to be counted in a separate hall. For each counting hall, there should be sufficient space, and preferably there should be separate entry and a separate exit. In fact, each hall should be an independent room, wall on all sides. If required, it shall be separated by temporary construction using strong materials, preferably CGI sheets. It should not be possible for anybody to move from one room to another without coming out of the hall. and partitions should be erected so that it should be impossible to slip any material from one hole to the other through partitions. Each counting center should have a distinct number, and each counting hole under the counting center should also have a distinct number. The counting holes, including the partitions as planned, should be ready at least 3 clear days ahead of the date of counting, and a report must be submitted by the returning officer to the chief electoral officer. Barricades of wood block and wire mesh separating the counting tables from counting agents should be constructed. There should be provision for the VCB, that is VVPAT counting booth. One of the counting tables in the counting hall where returning officer sits is to be converted into the VCB. It should be covered with wire mesh like the bank cashier's cabin, and the design of the VVPAT counting booth VCB is stated in the instruction given in January 2020. The VCB should have minimum length of 6 feet, breadth 6 feet and height 8 feet. All 4 sides and ceiling should be covered with a narrow wire mesh such that VVPAT slips cannot come out from the VCB. A circular hole of 5 cm radius at a suitable height for the counting agent transaction may also be made. A CCTV should be installed on the ceiling just above the counting table for monitoring and recording purpose. A VCB should have sitting arrangement for at least 4 personnel. Postal ballots may be arranged in another room, preferably in small hall. The arrangement may be done up to the 4 tables, 500 ballots per one table at a time in each round. For communication at the counting hall, there shall be enough tables, chairs, telephone with STD facility, fax machines, computers, printer, scanner and internet connection. And for observer, arrangements shall be done for tables, chair, television sets, telephone with STD facility, fax machine, computer, printer, scanner and internet connection. And there shall be a mobile room for safe storage of mobile brought by the candidate or candidate agents, etc. And the rooms tables are also required for each assembly constituency, for the sealing and for keeping the statutory papers, etc. There should be table for the returning officer and assistant returning officers. And tables are also required for the postal ballot, ETBPS counting and control unit counting tables and for the computation. Display board around 6 feet by 9 feet for display of roundwise trains inside the hole is also required. We also require a transparent container having the size of 14 inches in length and 10 inches in breadth and 5 inches in height, and a transparent pigeonhole tray having the size of 6 inches in length, 4 inches in breadth and 4 inches in height for the VVPAT counting. Other important matters are there should be emergency light backup system, that is generator, fire extinguishers, public address system, photocopier machine, video camera, drinking water facility, QR code scanner. For each counting table, the following materials will be arranged: paper knife, blue ballpoint pen, blank sheets of paper A4 size, carbon paper, enough copies of the part 2 of form 17C having the pre-printed candidate list. Further, there shall be roundwise movement sheet of EVM, performa for recording of votes secured by each candidate and nota by additional counting staff and micro observer, sealed power packs of EVMs to be used in case of the battery failures, and copies of the section 128 of Representation of People Act 1951, and a cardboard for the sealing, matches, candle, returning officers metal seal, sealing cloth, clipboard, rubber band of different sizes, self-adhesive tape, secret seal, common address tag, thread, text, envelope of various sizes, paper weight, glue stick, chalk, duster or marker, blade, sponge spade, blank proceedings. These materials are to be properly arranged as per the requirements. In the upcoming Manipur State Assembly election 2022, COVID-related measures have to be taken up in every counting center as per the new COVID guidelines. As per the Election Commission of India's instruction dated 28 April 2021, District Election Officer shall appoint a nodal officer at his counting center to ensure adherence to the following COVID-19 related norms at the counting center with Assistant Nodal Health Officer. A compliance report in respect of counting center that all arrangement has been made as per the COVID guidelines shall be obtained from the concerned health authorities. No candidate or agent will be allowed inside the counting hall without undergoing RT-PCR tests or without having 2 doses of vaccination against the COVID-19. They will have to produce the negative RT-PCR report or rapid antigen test report or vaccination reports within 48 hours of start of counting. The district election officer shall make arrangement of the RT-PCR or rate test to candidates, counting agents before the day of counting. List of counting agents shall be made available by the contesting candidates to the returning officer concerned by the 17 hours on the day 3 days prior to the date of fixed for counting of votes. No public gathering outside the counting venue shall be allowed during process of counting. The counting hall shall be big enough to maintain the social distancing. Proper ventilation shall be there. Windows and exhaust fans shall be there. The counting center shall be disinfected before, during and after the counting. Sealed outer box of the electronic voting machine VVPAT shall also be sanitized or disinfected. The number of counting tables shall be allowed in a counting hall as per the size of the hall and keeping in view safety norms prescribed for the COVID-19. Hence, the counting of votes of a constituency may be considered at 3 to 4 halls by appointing the assistant returning officers. And at the entry of the hall or premises, there shall be thermal scanning of all persons. Sanitizers, soaps and water shall be made available, and every person entering in hall shall sanitize his or her hand. No one having any symptoms of COVID-19 like fever, cold, etc. shall be allowed to enter in the counting hall. Candidate may replace the counting agent in case the COVID report is positive. There shall be sufficient number of PPE kits for counting agents or candidates. The counting agents sitting arrangement shall be made in such a way that between 2 counting agents, 1 counting agent shall be in PPE. The following items shall be provided to every counting official and security personnel in addition to the other prescribed norms: masks, sanitizer, face shield and gloves. For counting of postal ballots, additional number of assistant returning officers may be deputed if required, and postal ballots may also be counted in a separate hall under the supervision of the returning officer or the assistant returning officer. And as per the government guidelines, there shall be proper arrangement of disposal of COVID-related wastage, viz., masks, face shield, PPE kit and gloves, etc. There shall be proper display of guidelines for the do's and do nots at the convenient places including entrance gate and inside the counting halls. No victory procession after the counting shall be allowed. No more than 2 persons shall be allowed to accompany the winning candidate or his or her authorized representative to receive the certificate of election from returning officer. Non-compliance of above instruction will be liable to proceed against as per the section 51 to 60 of the Disaster Management Act 2005 and section 188 of the Indian Penal Code.